Syndicated source material.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Syndicated source material. If this is the first time you've seen a syndicated source material, you're probably wondering, what in the world is this format? So, during the pandemic, I was re-releasing old episodes after going back in and editing them, cleaning them up a little bit, trying to put a shine on some really old and rusty stuff from the early days of this show, where my editing skills weren't the greatest, and putting together a nice tight show was kind of secondary to recording and just getting some content out there. The good thing is this episode didn't require a whole lot of editing. This is source material episode number 173, and we're releasing this in celebration of the new Ant-Man movie. So this is myself, Mark Radulich, and Ronnie Adams talking about Ant-Man Second Chance Man. Came out in 2015. So we hope you enjoy. Get out there and get to the theater and watch the latest Marvel movie when it releases. Looks like Ant-Man Quantumania is going to be pretty fun. Here it is, Ant-Man Second Chance Man.
Welcome to Source Material. Tonight, we are going to be discussing a book that came out in 2015. We're tying this in with something, and I'll let the patriarch tell us all about that. Before we get to introducing him and turn it over to Mark Radulich, I'm going to I want to bring on the man, the myth, the legend, the host of the Screaming Boy podcast. His name is Ronnie Adams. Ronnie Adams, are you ready to talk some comic books tonight?
Always am.
All right, good deal. Mark Radulich, we're tying this in with something big that's going on right now in the old theaters, I believe. What is that?
Well, Jesse, since you asked and clearly have no idea what's in the Cineplex near you, I'll tell you what we're going to be synergizing with, because nobody knows.
Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Only I possess the knowledge of what movies are scheduled to come out when. It's not like you can look on the internet or see a movie poster anywhere near you. Ladies and gentlemen, much to
Sicario 2, Day of the Dead.
Much to everyone's surprise, when this airs on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, what would have just come out this past Friday is the latest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Ant-Man and the Wasp, the sequel to kind of Edgar Wright's Ant-Man, which came out in 2015. This one...
Not quite Edgar Wright's.
Almost Edgar Wright's. So yeah, this is the sequel to it. It's actually kind of a prequel to the next Avengers movie, from what I understand. And so, since these are the further adventures of the Scott Lang iteration of Ant-Man, I thought, why not go and take a look at one of the Scott Lang-centered trade paperbacks, which is Ant-Man by Nick Spencer, and it's issues 1 through 5, and that's all that this... And now, this continued in Astonishing Ant-Man, but it went in a different direction. So this is just Ant-Man 1 through 5, written by Nick Spencer and illustrated by Ramon Rosanas. Bernstein.
You made that up.
Bernstein? Oh, no.
Oh.
That had its day and it's done.
What's
great? That callback.
What's great about this book? Now, hey guys, I'm trying to be serious here. What's great about that book is this really is the essence of the Paul Rudd version of Ant-Man. You have this down on your luck, ne'er-do-well guy trying to make good by his daughter, and being, and having this Ant-Man persona sort of thrusted upon him, and him trying to figure out where he belongs in the real world and the superhero world. So we'll have some interesting discussion here talking about this book.
I would have to say Scott Lang is my favorite Ant-Man. I'm familiar with all three Ant-Men. I feel silly saying that.
I know all the Ant-Men.
I know all of them.
Can I tell you? I told my wife's friend who doesn't read comic books tonight that I want to get that if I make it 5 years without a relapse of cancer, I was going to get the Green Lantern ring tattooed on myself, and she completely didn't understand what the fuck I was talking about. So I had to explain to her that green is the color of will. And do you ever see the cartoon where the cartoon character turns into the donkey? That was happening to me.
Pinocchio.
As I was trying to tell this woman about my impending Green Lantern tattoo.
You need to learn to read the room, sir.
You ain't kidding, Buster. I know. I mean, you've been with Mindy for 1,000 years, but I mean, if you've ever tried to pick up a girl, Jesse's an elf. If you've ever tried to pick up a girl and you know you're bombing it but you can't stop talking. I wasn't trying to pick her up because she's married and I'm married. but I could feel myself bombing with my wife's friend. That's how bad this was.
They're like, don't ask him about comics. Don't do it, okay? Don't ask him anymore.
Stop talking to the girl about comics, you loser. Anyway, Ronnie, you were saying.
You can say that a lot, but it doesn't work.
It's
somehow I always end up doing that.
You were saying, Ronnie?
I'm familiar. I mean, of course, it started off with Hank Pym, and then it went to O'Grady next, wasn't it?
Yes.
We've covered O'Grady on the podcast.
I was taking a drink, sorry. Yes, he is the sleaziest of the Ant-Men. And then Scott Lang ended up with it. And I would have to say, out of all three, Scott Lang, being to my knowledge, the only convicted criminal of the three, is the most likable. He isn't a piece of crap like Eric O'Grady. He does not beat women like Hank Pym. So out of all three, he's probably the most likable. But I do think that he's my favorite Ant-Man because the humor, just the overall how of course it depends on who's writing. He's also kind of the underdog. Mm-hmm. Nobody really expected him to be a superhero as good as he is. Yeah, I like him the most.
Okay.
The Ant-Man I knew was Hank Pym, the Ant-Man who beat his wife and created Ultron. Who basically they took the worst parts of Hank Pym and put it into the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Tony Stark. So, yeah, I was not familiar with Scott Lang. When I knew they were doing the Scott Lang iteration of Ant-Man for the Ant-Man movie, I had to do some reading up on him and what he was. I had really no knowledge of him or Cassie or any of that. So this was a new experience for me reading about this because, like I said, everything I knew about Ant-Man, Hank Pym's one of the smartest people in the world. He's up there with Banner and Reed and all them. But he was also half a nut job who once or twice slapped Janet Van Dyne right across the puss.
Me, myself, I can't really recall too many Ant-Man stories that I've read, other than what we've done here on the podcast with the Eric O'Grady Ant-Man. Scott Lang is kind of like, just like you said, Ronnie, he's kind of like the underdog.
Yeah.
He's the guy that you're rooting for this guy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You want him to do well, and they've definitely used that to their advantage in this story because that's you want well for Ant-Man here. Reformed criminal, but trying to stay on the righteous path, being a superhero. I know you've read a few things, or of Cassie, his daughter, in the Marvel universe.
Yes, Stature. I think she was a part of the Initiative. That's what it was.
The Initiative.
The Initiative, Young Avengers, maybe Mighty Avengers that I can think of. Was she? Okay, good. I know she went by Stature, but maybe Giant Girl is what I remember.
She's got 4 aliases here. Stature, Stinger, Ant Girl, and Giant Girl.
Hey, I was right with Giant Girl.
Yep.
But so she basically has the same stuff as her, same powers as her dad.
Yeah, she can grow. She's been exposed to Pym particles, and that's an important part of this story too, because we're going to kind of break it down, and Cassie plays a very important role. Let's go ahead and give props to the creative team real quick, and then what we will do is we will do a synopsis. Might be a little bit longer than usual, but if you guys feel like talking about something, hop in. If not, save it till the end. We'll talk about it then. All right, so the creative team, as Mark said, Nick Spencer, who, just from what I read, had got into comics, it looks like around 2010, maybe a little bit before that. Actually was a Cincinnati politician at one point. He was in politics in Cincinnati for a little while after comics didn't exactly pull through for him. And then he came back to comics, wrote some very notable titles for Marvel, Iron Man 2.0, wrote some of the Avengers. More importantly, recently he's taken over the writing duties for Spider-Man after Dan Slott. After Dan Slott left. Yeah. After Dan Slott left, Nick Spencer has taken over, and I've heard good things. Now, I can't think for the life of me if I've read anything that he's done in the past. He's got some independent books under his belt as well. Something called Existence 2.0, Forgetless, Shuttertown. So these are stories that I've never read. But after reading this story, I'll tell you right now, I'm definitely interested in more stuff that he's done. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. Rosanos, was that his name again? Did I say that right? Ramon Rosanas. I can tell you that the art's great in this book, as far as I can tell. It does its job. So again, you got to remember that Nick is the writer and Ramon's the guy that's got to put that to the page. They have a story to look at, and he's the one that's got to make it visible for us to enjoy, and he did a fine job, in my opinion. Here we go. Issue 1. Scott Lang, the current Ant-Man, down on his luck, trying to stay on the right side of the law, also has to balance the superhero side of things with being a divorcee and a single dad. Applying for and eventually getting the job as Stark Industries head of security, things take a turn when his ex-wife decides to move to Miami with his teenage daughter, Cassie. Forced to make a tough choice, Scott leaves Tony hanging and, without a word, heads to Miami to be closer to his daughter. Calling Miami his home, Scott now decides to spin off the idea that Stark had and creates his own security company. One of his first potential pitches is to a bank. It's actually just a loan application, if I remember right. He's just trying to get a loan. Man, it's so funny because he walks into every place and he's always got the suit on. Now, imagine here it's a business pitch or whatever, and he's got to kind of look the part. But there's so many times in this book where I noticed that he had the Ant-Man suit on. And I was like, wouldn't you...
He's not shy about busting it out.
No, he's not. Wouldn't you change at some point? So, okay.
Well, he's using it for marketing purposes.
Would you change at some point? Is my question.
If I had the
Ant-Man.
suit, I know, dude. I would probably keep it on a lot as well. But I mean, there's points where he's just talking with his ex-wife, and she's like, I mean, dude, you got the suit on. He's just walking through the house.
She is the worst ex-wife. She is the worst wife character since Adrian.
Yeah, she's the worst.
Oh, come on now. She's just trying to do right for her daughter. She's trying to do right for her daughter here.
Don't stand up for her. She's terrible.
Who would
Don't have a mind of your own, Jesse.
Who would stay in New York after everything that's gone on in New York City? And who would stay in there? You would get as far away as you could, and I don't blame her for wanting to get out of New York and move somewhere where a building isn't falling down every day because some stupid fight is going on, much like Kingdom Come.
Need their fathers, and she doesn't give him any chance, at all. She's just riding him like a whore, like a bitch, and everything he does, she's just like, oh my God, you're putting your daughter in danger. Oh my God, you're not doing enough. This poor guy is trying to do you know how hard it is to get a job when you've got a felony on your record? And this man was an Avenger.
No.
All right, it's hard. And this man was an Avenger. Okay, this is a ridiculous character, and I kept waiting for her to get hit by a truck.
Huh.
I will tell you that I believe that Scott should have hung up the suit.
Why?
He should have hung up the suit because
that suit
we haven't even got there yet to what is going to be the crux of this whole book.
That suit is money.
It's clearly him. And that should not be what he's concerned about. His daughter is the one he should be concerned about. And we're going to get there. So one of his first potential pitches is to a bank. Going further than your normal business pitch, he cuts the electric to the bank and exposes all of the security flaws, unlocking all of the vaults. Unfortunately, secretly stowed away in one of the vaults is the villainous robot Nazi Gold, who awakens and threatens the bank and its patrons. Ant-Man springs into action, no questions asked, and saves the day. Impressing the bank's owner, Mrs. Morgenstern, she accepts Scott's offer on the stipulation she is cut in 50-50. Scott then hires the criminal Grizzly, and at the end of the issue, Ant-Man appears to be the target of the Taskmaster.
It's funny that in a lot of, not a lot, but in several movies you see that the big secret is somebody's hiding actual literal Nazi gold in a bank somewhere, that some big hoity-toity bank that the richest of the whitest of people can gain access to. In this one, they changed Nazi gold to a robot named Nazi Gold, so it's holding Nazi gold, who is an actual villain, which I find hysterical. But that's what caught me off guard.
Yeah.
That and Taskmaster. Taskmaster is the greatest cleanup batter in the history of villains. you know, or just a substitute. Oh, you can't get Green Goblin or somebody. Just send in Taskmaster. You know, he'll take care of it, or he'll do it. He needs some cash. Like with a power set like that, then the man can take on Captain America one-on-one and almost win. You know, and he carries a shield and a sword and uses guns but can fight like a maniac. But they're like, he's definitely B-list, and it makes me feel bad for him, even though he's a villain.
What do you think of Grizzly? Because you said you've had you love the way he was portrayed in the book. I mean, is this a character that you've run into before?
But briefly, I mean, he's just one of those write-off characters. You need a bad guy, you need somebody that can lift a car. Yeah, here's Grizzly. But in this one, he's got an actual personality. He's really funny. He is. He's really super funny. I appreciate that, him having humor behind him. It's just a down his luck guy needs a little boost, and he doesn't always have to be a villain. He can be a good guy. Yeah, he you know, and he proves that. But crime is easier, I guess. I just like how he was portrayed in this. Not only does he lift heavy things, but he has a soul.
Yeah, I like the way that they introduce him as he's attacking Scott Lang, and he's blaming him for putting him on the raft, I think. And Scott's like, wait a second, that wasn't me. I think you got me confused with somebody else. He's like, who? What are you talking about? There was a guy by the name of Eric O'Grady. I'm like, oh, boy, here we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then he's like, oh, well, I'm sorry. And they sit down.
Yeah, my bad.
That was good stuff.
I like that whole setup, you know, where he goes into the bank and he's like, I need $1,000 or $2, give or take.
He's like, my address is NA.
You know what I liked about this book? It's often been, like, books like Damage Control or whatever always deal with sort of the funny side of comic books, which is, like, how do these people eat? Like, what do they do for money? Now, obviously, some people, Superman worked as a reporter, and he drew a paycheck that way. Batman was a billionaire. Tony Stark owns his own company. But as you go down the road of the C and D list characters, and it's like, well, I'm an Avenger. Okay, but does that pay? You know, like, how do you make money? How do you have a life? And what I liked about this book, you know, overall, it wasn't, they didn't he's not just fighting bad guys. He's trying to put together his life that's a shambles. And it's little things like, I want to start a business. I'm going to use my costume. It's like a Booster Gold kind of a thing. You know, I'm going to use my costume to market myself because that's a brand. It's a brand that people identify with. It's a brand that has value. And so I'll use that to market the one skill I have. I love the fact that he kept saying, who better to protect your stuff than the guy who's stolen your stuff?
That's where I was going to. The billboard. Yeah. The billboard that he puts his money into that says Ant-Man Security Solutions. Who knows how to not get your stuff stolen better than the guy who used to steal your stuff? And it's got a picture of Iron Man with 2 thumbs up that says, I'd hire him.
Oh, my God. I laughed so...
That was hysterical.
Dude, I laughed so hard in the next panel where the executive or the lawyer or whatever is showing him the billboard, and it's just a one-word response: sue.
Oh, it's good stuff.
But like I said, I liked all of that. I like the fact that Scott Lang's a real guy. If he's probably, like, if you think about all the people that we've talked about over the past year, I think in different ways we can identify with the Supermans and Batmans. But as far as being just a dude trying to figure out how to navigate this crazy world where you can't afford shit and you know, and life gets out of hand way too easily, Scott Lang is probably the most identifiable dude character that us 3 schmoes could possibly ever identify with. Every single one of us could possibly be in the position that he's in. You know, where you're broken up from your family and you're trying to do right and you can't seem to get your shit together and you're genuinely a decent guy. You just can't seem to get ahead of the tidal wave of shit that keeps drowning you.
Thank goodness. You know, I'm happily married, but, you know, I am a product of divorce. You know, my mom and my dad got divorced I think when I was 2 years old. So I grew up like that. I know, Mark, you mentioned, I think on the podcast, you have an ex-wife, but could you imagine having to deal with having a kid as well?
Yes, and that's why we don't. I'm going to bring up my wife's ex-boyfriend who had a kid out of wedlock. She's the same age as my daughter, so 7 years. I spent the last 7 years fighting to see her. So, where, like, the mother of that particular child has broken every single agreement and has failed to live up to her end of every single court-written bargain, essentially. Any order that she's had, any agreement that they've had, she has not lived up to. And he has spent the better part of 7 years fighting to see this girl, including being accused of molesting her, by the way, which he did not do. Yeah.
Wow.
So he's had to, and he just had a victory where he was actually able to see her, after 7 long years. But yeah, could I imagine it? It sounds like the worst nightmare ever, and I know exactly what it's like because I've seen this guy go through it.
It changes a person. I've watched it happen with our family members recently. Some of that shit's going on with some people that are close to us, where something happened and now there's a divorce. They've had a kid who's about 8 years old. The dad's got to try and figure out a way to deal with the fact that he's not going to be there with his son anymore. Or at least not every day, and it's changed him. It's something that's.
I couldn't do it. I honestly, Melissa would have to do something incredibly heinous for me to walk out of this family because of the possibility that she could be one of these people that keeps me away from my kids, and nothing is worth it.
This funny story took a dark turn, but I think it's worth talking about because.
Quick, somebody make a fart joke.
Wait. I got it. Penis.
Don't do it. Oh, there we go.
Wait.
Issue 3. Attempting to do work for his first client, securing a paperclip warehouse, we find that Taskmaster actually set up Scott in order to keep him busy while his daughter Cassie is kidnapped. Who would hire Taskmaster to do this? A man by the name of Augustine Cross, daughter of Darren Cross, an enemy that Scott fell long ago. Augustine's plot? Abduct a doctor by the name of Erica Sondheim, forcing her to bring back his father. A man Dr. Sondheim dealt with before, as he had forced her to continually replace his heart with the working heart of homeless men. That's weird, but okay. How this involves Cassie, we do not know yet. We do know that what led to Darren and Scott's final encounter was when Cassie was undergoing surgery performed by Dr. Sondheim as well. We have yet to find out how this all ties together. In issue 4, Scott must make his way to rescue his daughter Cassie. But unfortunately, Cross Industries have their building anti-Ant-Man. I made that up myself. Anti-Ant-Man.
You kidding me?
Enter a new employee. Grizzly finds a friend from the local Supervillains Anonymous by the name of Machinesmith, a former villain who eats batteries and can easily manipulate electronics and machinery. Scott makes him a member of the team, and they make their way to save Cassie. The only problem is, after reaching the room that she was in, Augustine has succeeded in his venture to bring his father back. You see, Augustine knew that whatever heart he used, it most likely would fail. But Cassie's history of having a physiology that had been exposed to PIM particles made her the perfect candidate. Forcing Dr. Sondheim to make the transplant, Darren Cross lives. Now, I just throwing this out here before I go past it, okay? Taskmaster found his job on Hinge, the app Hinge, which apparently is just an app out there to get henchmen to do jobs.
If you're a superhero or a cop, why would you not just download this and follow the source?
I hear you.
I thought Darren Cross was Yellow Jacket.
Let's find out.
He's Pink Jacket now.
He's Pink Berry.
Pink Berry. I love how he says that, and then, we do the fourth wall breaking where he's like, again, concussion. I think you're right. He is.
He is.
Why does he look like the LGBTQ Hulk?
Huh.
Can anyone answer that for me?
Oh, it's funny.
No. I don't think we want to answer that for you.
I
think we're just going to shy away from that.
I want to know why Darren Cross is a transgendered Hulk. Because he's pink, audience, get it? I'm making fun of the fact that he's pink and calling him, other sexual. Get it?
So I don't know why he's pink. Let's just get back to that, I guess. I have no idea. I'm on his
Alexa,
wiki site here.
Why is Darren Cross pink?
She has no clue.
No.
She would have no clue. So, okay. Yeah, I don't know why he's pink, but let's go ahead. We'll get it to issue 5, then we can talk all about what happens here. The big crazy inconsistency of the story, which I may have to pull up the page just to figure out what the good doctor said happened. But
all right, since realizing that he was suffering from a rare heart condition, Darren Cross underwent a radical surgery procedure. Dr. Erica Soundheim implanted an experimental but sophisticated nuclear organic pacemaker in order to prolong Cross's life. However, Cross implant increased the size of his entire circulatory system, and as a result, it mutated his body, making him LGBTQ. With the heavy toll...
I don't think that's right.
Now that he's woke, with the heavy toll...
Please, allow the conservative Christian of the group to make you refrain from making these jokes.
With the heavy toll brought on by the implant in his wokeness, Cross had to undergo a continuous lapse in the heart transplants, and since an ordinary human heart cannot sustain his augmented body, Dr. Soundheim would have to alter each donor's physiology. Soundheim was trailed by Scott Lang, a man who had stolen Hank Pym's Ant-Man suit in order to save Soundheim, who was the only person who could perform life-saving surgery on his daughter Cassie. Cross battled Ant-Man and died from the resulting stress caused to his heart. The company was later taken over by Darren's son Augustine and his brother William.
Okay. All right.
Is it William?
No.
Is it actually Wilhelm?
No, it's William.
Okay, so we now understand why he is mutated in pink. That's good.
In pink.
It only took a half an hour.
In the final issue, we get a battle between Ant-Man and Darren Cross while Cassie's life hangs in the balance. Just as Darren appears to have the upper hand, he begins to shrink, as at the time he does not have control over the Pym particles coursing through his body. Scott allows him to escape, focusing on his daughter. Dr. Sondheim explains her body is rejecting the new... You know who. Dr. Sondheim.
Sondheim.
Her body is rejecting the new heart she was able to procure. See, this is what we need to look at real quick. So she is an unfortunate victim of where they take her heart out and put it in this guy. Now, where did she get the other heart? I don't know if that's explained, so I'm going to fast forward real quick just to that issue.
It's a comic book. Doesn't need to be explained.
I'm sorry, but a heart procedure is kind of a big deal.
Because up to this point, this was very realistic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Shrinking men. Realistic.
Yes. Look, I'm fine with the amount of energy it takes to shrink and enlarge some things, and and what happens to that energy and all of that. I'm fine with all of those things. I'm fine with a guy running around in a bear suit. I'm fine with living robots. What I'm not fine with is performing open heart surgery, and this woman is now this girl is now existing for several minutes with no heart.
I feel you need to pick your battles better.
Nope.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay. Those bastards, they took her heart, Scott. Her heart? But I was able to perform another procedure, another transplant for her. I thought maybe we'd get lucky, but heart compatibility, it's a tricky thing. I needed prep time, testing, drug treatments beforehand. I didn't have any of that here. So,
my
okay.
extra one.
Yeah, first off, they force her at gunpoint, and they say, okay, look, you're going to make this transplant. We're going to abduct Cassie. I really don't think... The only thing that I can think of is they took... Well, no, that I don't even think his heart was good. Darren Cross's heart wasn't good because he was in suspended animation and dead because his heart gave out. So I don't know if she just had an extra heart laying around or if they okay, we got to have a backup just in case this one doesn't work, which I could maybe give that some credence considering they knew that her heart was going to be too small to begin with to go into this large man. They're kind of banking banking everything that they had on the Pym particles enlarging the heart. But I don't know. That's the only thing. That's the only explanation I can give. But either way, Cassie's body's rejecting the new heart that was put in there. In order to save things, Scott shrinks down and enters Cassie's bloodstream, fighting off her own body's defense mechanisms, allowing the transplant to take hold. After saving her, Scott realizes that the life that he leads will always endanger his daughter, and soon makes the difficult decision he should return to New York to allow her to try to lead a normal life.
I think if the son could have figured out another way to bring back his dad, he would have without having to engage with Ant-Man. At this stage, I'm getting the sense that a lot of the villains have been beaten so many times in the last 100 years in the Marvel Universe. The way that a lot of the villains are written are, is like, look, we're trying to make money without engaging the superheroes because we always lose and it's not really worth it. So I get the idea that if he could have brought his dad back without Cassie or without dealing with Ant-Man, he would have. And as far as Ant-Man using the suit, again, just because you're out there stopping bank robberies and terrorists doesn't necessarily mean you got enough money to, for a mortgage and groceries. And I think it's a realistic portrayal of a superhero in 2018. I don't think Stan Lee and Jack Kirby really had to deal with these things because people were looking for some escapism, and I think they rode that for all that it's worth. And now I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are people who go to comics for escapism still, but I think there's an element out there that try to find some relatability in their comic books. And like I said, this is a very relatable situation.
It's been on here before, Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. Mm-hmm. Super relatable because he's just a dude that is trying to make his life work. He's protecting his apartment building from the bro squad.
There's very little action that takes part in that book, and it's still so good.
It's so good. Yeah. And one of the best ones is from the viewpoint of Lucky the dog, Pizza Dog.
Dog.
Which is probably my favorite character out of that whole book. I mean, I love everybody and how they portray. Other superheroes show up or whatever, but it doesn't really show any quote unquote superhero action. There's no life threatening craziness going on. If there was, it shows right after it. And then when Jessica Drew, Black Widow, and Bobby Morris, Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spider-Woman, Black Widow, and Mockingbird all show up because, oh crap, it's my ex-wife, my ex-girlfriend, and my current girlfriend. It's not, here come my teammates. Here come the Avengers. It's real life. Here comes my ex, my two exes, and my current. Yep. And why are they all hanging out together? This isn't good. And it's just like something out of a movie or a TV show, a comedy of, oh crap, I'm caught in the middle of it. And so I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed this because there are your superhero moments in it, supervillain versus superhero, but it's still very relatable.
Mm-hmm. There's a part in page 3, and I'm sorry, Mark, but I'm going to give Peggy some credit here.
Nope.
Okay, Peggy's getting some credit.
No,
but there's a part in issue 3 where Scott says, I just really don't think let's try that again. I just really don't think one of us being away from Cassie is the way to go. She needs us both right now. And it's not like I'm not meeting you in the middle here, right? You said it yourself. There's no costume crazy stuff here in Miami. And then she chimes in and she says, except the one you brought with you.
All right, exactly. I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to paraphrase The Hobbit here in saying that it takes an awful lot of courage to leave your front door. There's any number of things trying to kill you. Okay, you, Jesse Starcher, could, on your way to work, could be hit by an asteroid, or just get into a fender bender. Either way, you could spill hot coffee on your nuts. Life is dangerous.
Sit on your nuts.
You could sit on your nuts. Who hasn't sat on the nuts?
I have not.
A grizzly bear could wander into your office and maul everybody. You don't know, Jesse. You think you're living a safe life. You think you've got everything all laid out and protected, and you think, okay, if I just do these things, nothing will bother me. And then, bammo, attacked by bats. Okay, you don't know. Is what I'm trying. Is what I'm trying to say.
Fair point, Mark Radley. But my question to that is, where are you working now, Jesse? That bears and bats are going to attack you at any moment.
A bear could come out of the atmosphere and land in his lap.
What?
You don't know.
I don't need that. I don't need that.
When did bears start flying?
Jesse, honestly. Anywhere you go, there's crime. Everywhere you go, there's crime. And in a world where some of that crime is done by people wearing fancy suits, everywhere you go, there's going to be crime with fancy suits. She's being ridiculous.
I mean, look at Runaways. They're on the left coast. I hate it when people say that. Nothing ever really happens out on the West Coast. I mean, they did a whole Avengers storyline with it, and nothing came of it. Really. They had to do time travel to make it up. But there's costume crime everywhere in this world. I'm with Mark on this. I don't give her any leeway whatsoever.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot of conflict here with the fact that he's a superhero who has kids, and there's probably been a few conversations we've had on this podcast about that whole dynamic, or the people that, you know, talking about Spider-Man, those people, should he have a secret identity, should he not? You know, he puts those people in danger because he is known as Peter Parker. For as funny as this book is, I mean, I want to talk about, Mark, were you entertained? Was this a pretty funny book?
Ant-Man Second Chance, man, is a very funny book. First of all, I thought it was kind of meta. You know, obviously there's a lot of breaking the fourth wall. I mean, it wasn't quite Deadpool, but he's acknowledging that he's narrating the story. And hello? And are you making balloon animals? It's just but there's a lightness to the book. I mean, I think the book manages to balance the realities of the divorced dad trying to make good with it also being a superhero book, with it also being funny. You know, I think it had a lot of balls in the air, and it juggled them pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. Like I said, Scott Lang is my favorite Ant-Man. Seeing him go through the struggles, everyday struggles, and being a superhero, having an empty wallet, unfortunately for him, is not entertaining, but it's relatable, which makes it entertaining. You know, I don't want to call anybody, whether it be a comic book hero or even somebody in a movie, I don't want to say their struggles are entertaining, but it made it relatable.
One of the things that they said on his wiki was that most of his work, Nick Spencer, most of his work is like doing crime noir writing. So
this was different.
Yeah, I was going to say, this kind of feels removed from that.
No, I could see that with this, because this was sort of taking the hard-boiled detective story and slapping a bit of superhero on top of it.
Okay, all right.
I definitely saw that.
Okay. Well, that and the Miami Vice cover with Grizzly.
Dude, that was perfect.
That was incredible.
God, I want to hang that on my wall.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I really enjoyed his writing on this book. Nick Spencer is probably another person that I'm going to seek out a little bit more work from them. I am really glad that gave him the reins to Spider-Man, because I would actually like to see what he does with Spider-Man. There's probably like one or two issues, because that was updated in March, and I think he took over probably within the last month or so, probably after Threat Level Red or Going Down Swinging or whichever those ones were done. And Dan Slott made his exit, and in come Nick Spencer. So I really enjoyed this. I had a good time. It seems like both Ant-Man books that we've done on here, Ronnie Adams, have actually been really good books. In the hands of a good writer, this character and all his abilities can be used to keep the story entertaining, and I like bits and pieces of that as we've gone through the story. So,
thank you very much for joining us. Do not forget to subscribe to our new home by punching in W2M Network on just about any podcast platform to get all of our content into your audio feed. Also, give a like to the Rattlich in Broadcasting Network and W2Mnet.com Facebook page in order to stay on top of everything that we have to offer. If you'd like to follow the Source Material Podcast on social media, just follow @SourceMattCast on Twitter, and we are on Facebook @Source Material Comics Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please feel free to share. We look forward to entertaining you again soon.
All right, I'm going to stop being a dick.
That lasted about 2 minutes.
No, Tony Stark never struck a woman.
With his dick.
Listen, we're trying to have a serious podcast here.
A man, Dr. Sondheim, forcing Dr. Sondheim. Yes, Caleb, I'm on a podcast, sir. Huh? How many?
Was Trailblaze is Sondheim? Was Yvonne? Was
That fucking fiddle never die.
Why does he look like the LGBTQ Hulk? It's raining Beth, rawr. Hallelujah.
Roar.
Hit it, Darren.
Oh my God, no! Shut up!
You went left and then you said east.
I know! I got it mixed up! I don't know directions.
Some people go both ways.
Oh my gosh.
Hit it, Darren.
What happens then? Does he come out with like glow sticks and glitter? That's how he fights. He fights Ant-Man with glow sticks and dance moves.
20 minutes later.
To some people. So,
What are you laughing at? What are you laughing about?
I agree, Ronnie.
Also, props to you, Mark, for saying balls and not giggling.
I do want to say that aside from the humor, I enjoyed the science too. They
You mean the girl living without a heart?
You mean a man can't shrink to the size of an ant or grow to the size of a building? Astounding!
A man can become a building.
I'm starting a new spreadsheet of shit I should have never said. just
And number
was
one on
one
that
thing I
is,
should've
hey,
never
Mark, I can do a podcast.
All right. When you're hearing this, you're listening.
Good night, folks.